Welcome back to the Fire Break. I'm Steve Wolf. As you know, the Fire Break is sponsored by Team Wildfire, developing some innovative technology. Did I say innovative? I meant innovative technologies for putting out wildfires and protecting structures and people and the things we love from getting burned up. Well, no stranger to that mix is Scott Holman. Scott is a retired captain. I'm going to presume with Cal Fire, but he's free to tell me otherwise if that's not the case. And a Marine veteran. Thank you for your service, Scott, and welcome to the Fire Break. How are you?
Great. For the record, just retired a month and a half ago from Metro Fire in Sacramento after 30 years.
Metro Fire. Okay, so you're not enemies with Cal Fire. You're just not part of Cal Fire. Is
Oh,
that
I've
right?
worked with Cal Fire on many incidents, but 29 years at Metro Fire, and then a year
Wow.
before at one of the other local agencies. So
Okay.
it's a great experience.
Well, Scott, you're falling right into that vein of fire break guests whose name always ends with "been there, done that."
Yeah.
So you sure have. What are you seeing in the fire space right now?
Well, in the fire space specifically, up where I live up in a rural community above Sacramento, and a lot of it is, of course, wildfire. Wildfire all across California is a big deal, and no stranger to that environment are homeowners who live up here as well. You know, those that are dealing with insurance issues. So rural communities, wildfire threat is a huge issue up where we are.
Okay, and not getting better, right?
No. Statistically, it's getting worse every year.
Okay, and when we say statistically it's getting worse, is there any place where it's not getting worse? Because the statistics, right, they combine the average, which would mean no, some places are getting better, some places are getting worse, but I'm not aware of any place that's getting better, and I didn't know if you were.
Not that I'm aware of. If there is, I'd sure like to know where that is and go look at available property.
Yeah, and move there, right?
Yeah,
It's too late. It's already been sold.
that's right.
Right. So you've transitioned, it looks like, from fire service straight up, government guy to entrepreneur, and that's an exciting shift. Um,
Yeah.
in many cases is scary or scarier than things that you come up against in the fire service, because now you have a whole other realm of responsibilities to deal with. But you founded and are the CEO of Redline Safety. So tell me what Redline is and what your mission and your strategy is there.
Well, Redline Safety is a technology company that specializes in building advanced wearable technology for firefighters. We've been doing it for several years, so we're obviously in the hardware business,
Right.
which can be
Hard.
very yeah, very challenging. Once I started working with other entrepreneurs and innovators, it seems like the common thread is to stick with software. Uh,
Oh
they
boy. Right.
the
Well, just
software things
if you dump enough software on a fire, you can put it out, right?
maybe.
Yeah.
Uh, but the challenges with building hardware have been rather significant. However, with the data that we're wanting to collect, there's no other means of getting it than
Okay.
by building hardware that's packed with sensors that can collect relevant incident data that can make a big difference in the managing of the incidents as well as firefighter safety.
Okay. So tell me, what type of data collection are you doing?
Well, our our technology centers around wearable IoT technology, similar
Okay.
to simple devices like these that the firefighters wear,
Right.
packed with sensors. Obviously, the big one is GPS because firefighter tracking is kind of like the hot thing now
Right.
in the fire service. But along the way, we realize, and you can do that a number of ways. There's some great products that are out there that can access other people's hardware, like their phones or iPads or whatever, and they can use the GPS units that are in those systems to be able to manage resources. And I think those
Okay.
those systems are great. What we decided to do would be to take the hard road and say, what kind of data is meaningful. And
Yeah.
so, of course, we started with GPS, and then we started scaling to, hey, maybe what about sensors? Maybe if we're gonna do something hardware, let's put some sensors in this. And so, for example, early on, we added air temperature, barometric pressure, and humidity,
Okay.
because the weather data, turning every firefighter into a massive data collection resource, we found can have meaningful impact on incidents. So we started with that. For example, a wildland firefighter wearing something like this that's got air temperature and humidity, you can get find dead fuel moisture at that point.
Right.
Uh,
Exactly at that point. Not at the
yes,
nearest weather station 20 miles away.
right,
Right.
right.
So you're turning people into walking weather stations.
Yes. And so that's where we started. And that was exciting. And then along the way, as we collaborate with other people, people were talking about, hey, well, what about that? You've got the environmental. What about toxic gas? So we added
Yeah.
sensors that can collect the exposure issues that firefighters experience. And so then that got really exciting. And then we thought, well, wait a minute, how about biometric data? So now we're also collecting valuable biometric data. And when we did proof of concept testing, we actually found a life-threatening heart problem in a 24-year-old firefighter that he was unaware of. But it was
Wow.
because we were gathering that biometric data during an incident that he was involved in that opened up the medical community's eyes to the potential of gathering this on a large scale. Because you combine the biometric data with the environmental and toxic gas exposure, and they're starting to, the medical community that we've been working with have been discussing opportunities that can be created along the way for detox and rehab protocol development with real actionable data. So that's where we've been kind of headed. It's as we build this hardware, we've been talking about trying to come up with the proper form factor. This is where I think, and of course, any firefighter out there will understand that it's very important to understand the target audience and what they do. You need to have something that's easily usable, right? All you have to do is
Yep.
turn it on, and there's nothing else a firefighter has to do. You can drop it, kick it, knock it around. It's very durable, so it has to be robust. So, and then the other thing that we added to it, which I think is very important, because when we started interacting with other agencies in the state, one of the things that came up was interoperability. And
Hmm.
so we've made this our hardware interoperable to work with anybody else's system, which I think is a big deal, because the idea is we want to try and keep firefighters safe as possible. We want to improve incident management operations in any way we can, protect communities. And according to those that are in the industry, it's ultimately believed that we can improve the insurability profile of homeowners with widespread adoption of this system. So the interoperability component was pretty big for us from the very beginning. So we're pretty happy with that, and it's already being used in other systems, which kind of is proof positive that what we're onto is rather significant.
So you really didn't set out to do a heavy duty market segmentation thing here, right? We're just looking at health, or we're just looking at insurability. Like, you're really taking a pretty holistic look at the wildfire space as a whole, and then looking at all of the ways in which data can be used, to mitigate, to prevent, to predict, to respond.
Yeah. Well, like you were saying, prediction, right? So those that are in the world of data, and if you talk to people who are really focused on data collection and sorting and management and reports and all that other stuff, uh, they say that the data that we're collecting, and there's AI programs that our software people are working on, that over time it's believed that you can have an element of predictability with the data that's being collected. And so, every time we move forward and we start working with somebody else, we start learning more things about the data that we're collecting. And I think that's the secret sauce to this entire operation, is we're collecting so much data we can do. I mean, it's research relevant. data, not just incident management relevant, but there's a
Right.
relevance to the world of research. So it just opens up possibilities that we hadn't considered in the beginning. But as we move forward, we're finding that there's a lot of opportunities, and it's very exciting.
So, are you finding that by collecting more data about things that weren't being monitored before, you're able to lay the groundwork for creating correlations for things people had never considered?
Yes. Um, so we've worked with state organizations that do fire predictive modeling. And so what they liked about this is that every firefighter is, like we were talking about earlier, every firefighter is a little mini weather station at that point.
Right.
And they said that helps their algorithm. The federal government has come in and said, hey, we can use this in a counterterrorism project because we're trying to protect the homeland from pyroterrorism. And that data may be very helpful. So what we've scaled into, once we started working with the federal government and they brought in their atmospheric profiling people, was not only creating a deployable communication infrastructure when connectivity, our primary connectivity is of course cellular, like everything.
Sure.
But in those areas that we don't have connectivity, we've created using a series of these mountable gateways that can be magnetically mounted to the roof of a vehicle or set on a tripod. The atmospheric profilers were coming in saying, hey, can you put wind measurements on that? So then
Sure.
we started getting into wind measurements, and we've added air quality sensors that has elicited a lot of interest from organizations such as Harvard and Stanford, because they want to do smoke studies, and you can do smoke study exposure at that point of where the firefighters are. So it's opened up a whole nother research opportunity with them. In fact, we've even added thermal imaging on these sensors so that those that do mapping can take that thermal imagery in real time and adjust their maps accordingly. But when we started working with the federal government and they were asking us about wind measurements, they go, well, and they were talking to our chief technology officer. They were saying, well, would your wind measurements be 2 or 3 axis? And I had to pause for a moment going, I didn't know there was a third axis to wind measurements. So what we did was we've also now created a 3D, a third axis wind measurement. This is from another company, and we've kind of customized it to our hardware, that this creates a 3-dimensional wind measurement.
Yep.
And in the world of fire predictive modeling, F-bands, the fire behavior analysts, the data that we're collecting just with the wind measurements in real time on the perimeter of these incidents opens up a whole new possibility of, fire behavior analysis.
Well, on your z-axis there, at what height do you position the sensor, or at how many heights can you position the sensor?
Well, we have on our communication trailers that we put the third axis, the 3-axis wind measurement. We have a telescoping mast. Okay. So right now we're doing 20-foot measurements. However, we can extend that. We've had some that have said, a 30-foot wind measurement would be very helpful, but we'll stick with the 20 because that's where a lot of the wind measurement values come from. But it's adjustable, so we can make it. Yeah. We can make it any height, actually.
All right. Let me go down a road that just occurred to me here. You have GPS and position stability features on drones, right? You tell this drone, hover at 100 feet, stay right over this spot, right?
Yeah.
It does that, right? It counters the wind to do that, whether it's updraft, downdraft, lateral currents, whatever, right?
Yep.
Could we not measure the effort that the drone has to expend in order to counter the winds in order to maintain that position, and use that data to know what the winds aloft were doing?
Oh, you mean like getting that wind measurement with strictly with the drone and the?
Yeah, but not by putting a sensor on the drone, but by measuring the effort that the drone has to expend to stay in that position, which would correlate to wind speed.
Right. Yeah. I've seen a lot of drone usage out there.
What's
that?
I don't know if anyone's doing that.
There are people that are out there that are using drones. I've talked to several people who are in that space.
Okay.
I think I've seen them, like for example, I've seen this unit attached to a drone, trying to get that third axis. They have to position it farther away from downward wash from
Right.
the rotors and stuff, so
Yeah.
they can get it. So I've seen people trying to do that, and maybe they've had success. But I think we live in a world where our imagination is the only thing that keeps us from doing things. And I think it's
So
an
agree.
exciting time, and I'm glad to be a part of that. So
Yeah, no, that's so exciting that the limitation now is imagination, not fabrication.
right, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So you're going off in different sensor directions. Have you gotten any data back yet that have revealed anomalies that you hadn't expected?
Not yet.
Okay.
We're still relatively early.
Yeah.
We've set up our equipment to do some vegetation management burn data collection. We've had some simulations where we've used the sensors where they've taken the data from our gateway and the individual sensors, and they did a predictive modeling forecast before using those ROS stations that are many kilometers apart, and they did a
Right.
predictive modeling, I guess, demo. And then they
Okay.
took the data from our on-site data and showed that the predictive modeling profile was different. So and my point behind that is that's when they found that having on-site measurements closer to the incident helps in the accuracy of the predictive modeling. And so in the simulations, we've had a lot of success, but we're looking at testing it on live fires this summer.
Well, I think that's going to yield some fascinating results.
Yes.
In the tech that we're building, we envisioned that every vehicle is a fire station.
Yes.
But in wildfire, the troops are often, quite a distance from the vehicles.
Right.
So by extending that capability out to right where the guys are is huge.
Well, and what helps is when people are they refer to it as dismounted firefighter tracking.
Okay.
And so and I think
Too.
it's great. I think that's a good term.
Yeah.
And based on our development, we have mesh networking capability, so everyone's kind of connected. And so you kind of only really need at least one person connected to the cloud, because the whole idea behind all of this is getting this critical real-time data in the cloud so that incident managers can access it in real time. And so
Okay.
through our communication networking and mesh networking, we're finding that the networking that we have for the terrain that it's in is very effective. So
I see.
that's worked out very well so far.
So if you're measuring your biometrics and your weather conditions, you're like taking a Kestrel and a wearable EKG Apple Watch, putting them together and slapping a transmitter on them, and now you're able to basically correlate. How does the microclimate around that firefighter impact the biometrics? And then that certainly could be used predictively when a firefighter doing XYZ work puts himself into this or herself into this weather climate, this weather, humidity, temperature, etc. These are the likely biometric results that we're going to have to probably mitigate or
Right.
treat.
And the
Yeah.
biometric part of it, one of the things that we've done is we've engineered it so that the firefighters, because there are some issues that come up from time to time in conversations that firefighters are kind of concerned about. Well, this is kind of like my data. I don't know. Am I supposed to share it? So, we put that in their hands that they can keep
Yeah.
it for themselves or they can share it. Because what we found was that, again, through the medical community that we've been working with, is that it's believed that a firefighter's biometric signature is different when they're on the fire line versus if they're on a treadmill. You can't reproduce it.
Sure.
And so the idea is that the firefighters will have this data in their own account that they can use for their own personal health and wellness. And in the event that they unfortunately get sick from work-related exposure stuff, they've got a digitalized real-time exposure record. and backup biometric data that can support their claim.
Oh,
Because
that's
all too
very
often,
interesting.
I'm sorry?
That's very interesting, right?
Well, it's again, this was engineered originally about firefighter safety and health and wellness.
Yeah.
The health and wellness is a 24/7 opportunity that we use through our partner Garmin, who's
Okay.
developing our biometric data collection. And
Couldn't have a
so,
better partner for that.
oh, they're
Yeah.
fantastic. The equipment that they have is absolutely perfect for our need. But the idea is with using them that a firefighter will have a 24/7 health and wellness program available at their fingertips, and that when they turn on their hardware, it now Bluetooths, it Bluetooths over to our units, our IoT
Okay.
units, and then puts it in the cloud, but it still stores that data in their account. Because all too often, I've had a lot of friends and coworkers not only die in the line of duty, but many more get sick and be forced into having time off, some into retirement, and at the worst moment of their career, when they're told you have cancer, uh, they file a claim, and then they have to do a lot of extra legwork to get that processed. What this
Sure.
does is we believe it just automates the whole thing so that they don't have to go through that at the worst time in their life. So we're kind of excited about that opportunity to be able to help firefighters in those times.
Yeah, this is it's almost it's a rehash, really. Like, well, first of all, Agent Orange doesn't exist, and if it did, we never used it where you were,
Yeah, right.
right? Well, right. Well, now you have, now you have an answer to that.
Well, when you think about it, we're learning an awful lot about the things that we all have, in our food supply, in our environment, everything. And the one thing that helps along the way is having the data to back up what you uh, to back up how you feel about being exposed to certain things. So
Yeah.
again, we live in a world of tremendous data information, and I think what we're doing is we're opening up the world of possibilities with firefighter data collection.
And so it may benefit the protection of the firefighter's individual data to elect to upload it, because then if they need it, they don't have to find it themselves. It's part of your cloud of data.
Yes, and the idea is that we want to give the firefighters absolute privacy, that they can keep that information to themselves. They don't have to share it with a single soul. Or if they wish, if they're on the incident, maybe they can put the setting at, hey, let them know when my values are all, my heart rate, because the data values that we're collecting is pulse oximetry and heart rate variability and such. That if my values are, if I have a heart rate, this during this proof of concept, we discovered that this 24-year-old had a heart rate of 218 beats per minute,
Oh my
which
goodness! Wow.
which we had to confirm, and it was confirmed later. So, but it was asymptomatic, so he didn't know that he had it
Okay.
because he was only 24 years old. Maybe 24-year-olds can have that and not be too bothered by it. But the
Right.
idea behind it is you now have the opportunity. You'll now have the opportunity to kind of look back and find out, why was I feeling this way, or hey, I had this warning because my heart rate was so high. So we're empowering firefighters to be more aware of their exposure and their physiological reaction to the job that they have on a larger scale, and we think that's going to help keep them more healthy longer. The PBS NewsHour did an article in November of 2022 that said firefighters have a life expectancy 10 years less than the average person. Pretty strong data that came out and reports. And our goal is we'd like to be able to reduce that. We'd like to give firefighters a fighting chance at a longer, healthier life. And it
Sure.
starts with data. And we think what we're gathering is the perfect mix of data that firefighters can use to accomplish that goal.
That's terrific. I mean, that's such an intelligent solution, and so brave to go into a space that's so data driven without a solution that's entirely software. And after all, what can software do if you don't feed it data? And
Right.
how do you get data without hardware?
Yeah.
So, yeah, so that's really brave of you to go into this space. And
It's funny you say that. I was just at an event yesterday, then I was talking to other entrepreneurs and investors, and I was talking about courage. And I said,
mhm,
I was in the Marine Corps for a few years, so yeah, I experienced and learned about how to manage courage. Right? I mean, courage is something that everybody has to some degree, but when you're in the military, you have to come at it from a different angle. In the fire
right,
service, same thing. That's you can't do that job if you don't have a good amount of courage. We were talking about courage, and I said being an entrepreneur is a whole different level of courage,
damn right,
because in the Marine Corps and the fire service, the men and women in those two organizations, you know that there's somebody there that's got your back that can help you.
right,
Entrepreneurs, they kind of go out there in a very bold manner, and they invest their time, their energy, their soul. They usually pull in the people that are around them and include them. And there's not exactly the same type of support and backup, but it's definitely a different skill set of courage. So I've really come to grow to really appreciate and admire a lot of these other entrepreneurs that are out there.
well, having been an entrepreneur exclusively since I was 18, never worked for anyone else. Always
Wow.
run my own thing. Um, I and now recently, being an actual funded entrepreneur with investors that I answer to and whatnot.
Yeah.
It's a whole different category, and I really I can't stress the value enough of having a peer group of fellow CEO founders uh, to support you. And there's a lot of accelerator programs. I'm sure you know
Hmm.
about programs like Techstars and Y
Right.
Combinator, et cetera. And they offer to do a whole lot of things for you to help you launch your business. Uh, they seldom tout the key value point, which is just the network, the peer-to-peer support for what you're going through,
Right.
because
Right.
it's
And
not something you could ever anticipate,
yeah.
right? When you set out to start Redline, you
Right.
know, no one told you all these other things you're going to experience along the way trying to get a
Right.
business started, right?
Well, and I've sat at tables with just entrepreneurs at pitch events, right? You go to a pitch
Yeah.
event, you have to go up, you got 5 minutes, you got to tell them everything about your business, and then so that can be kind of nerve wracking. But I've sat at these
Right.
tables with other entrepreneurs, and I go, as much as I'm enjoying this whole networking of entrepreneurs and everything, I said I like sitting at the table talking to you because
Yeah.
I know what I'm doing. I want to hear about what you're doing and the path that
Right.
you've been on. And when you sit down and you talk to some of these people in these startups, they have fascinating stories. And
Yes.
so it only makes me admire them even more because I mean, at 18, I mean, I was much older when I started doing this, and so I had at least some things. But boy, you must have been quite a knowledgeable and
Oh,
enterprising 18-year-old.
well, once you know that you're, self-unemployable, right?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
No, I just, I think my experience is that what drives the most interesting founders is curiosity. Like
Yes.
this huge drive to understand how the world works, what
Yeah.
the interrelated connections between things are, and that's like your journey right now is like, okay, we have the gist of what fire is about, but there's so many data points that we don't know, so many unconnected or yet to be proven connected aspects.
Right.
And when you start throwing hardware on people and getting their biometrics, getting the weather, and getting the z-axis in the wind, like all these things that people think of as new and novel, that will look back and they'll say, well, these are essential. Like,
Yeah.
how did we ever do this without that?
Exactly. I think there's going to be a time very soon that after we have this data and we're collecting it, there's they'll look back at how did we do this before we had this type of data collection. So
Yeah. Right. And just in our lifetimes, I remember trying to convince my dad, that he should get a cell phone.
mm,
And he's like, I got a pager. What do I need that for?
right. Yeah. Yeah. People can get a
A
hold of me.
laptop. I write by hand. What do I need that thing
Right.
for?
Right.
And now you think back and you're like, oh my God, how do we live without it?
Yeah.
But your data is going to do the same thing,
Yeah.
and I think has really huge life-saving potential.
Well, it does. And like, for example, with this young kid, when I took it to, I was speaking with a local cardiologist who's a huge fan of the fire service. And I just
Yeah.
told him this story anonymously. And he said, is that so-and-so? It turned out it was his patient. He
Oh
goes,
my
that's my
goodness.
patient. He goes, he didn't tell me how he found this out. He goes, okay, now I'm in. So he's actually
Wow.
one of our advisors now. And I've had the opportunity to speak to a collective of medical directors from around the world called Eagles. And within that organization, I mean, it's hundreds of medical directors across the globe. But I've created a dialogue with others that have been in the fire service medical directing business for a long time, and they said it'll be transformational. So
Yeah, in this case with this 24-year-old, this is really like an outlier case. It's a fascinating case.
right.
It's a media worthy case. It's not the case used for which you created the the product.
No, it was by accident.
Right. It was,
We had some students from a local college came up, put this biometric tracking, rudimentary device on them, and it found this, and it's kind of like we weren't even really kind of going in that route. However, that's one of the things that's kind of good about working with student groups is that they think of things that are kind of in different spaces, and so they
yeah.
said, let's try it, and we did, and we found this, and we went, okay, now we have to include that in what we're doing. So. The world of collaboration
Yeah.
has opened up all kinds of opportunities for us, and we're excited about being here and working with the people that we have. And it's hard work. I mean, that you know this. It's like and so much of it involves fundraising,
Yeah.
and that's the
Make friends with that word because it's in your life, like it or not.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because we bootstrapped it, and then we did friends and
Yep.
family, and then we did friends and family again, and then
Right.
we did some other things, and then now we're experimenting with the crowdfunding opportunities on a website, and so it is challenging, and it seems like that's the hard part. Developing the technology has been relatively easy.
Sure. That's not a people thing.
Yeah. So,
People. They say hardware is hard. People are hard.
oh yes, they are, and so
Yeah.
it's
And we
it's
can
a
we can take on we can talk the fundraising thing offline,
yes.
but the short version would be that if you want to eventually take institutional investment, they're going to frown on the crowd situation, the crowdsourced.
Yeah, so we haven't really started that part yet. We're just kind
Okay.
of doing a testing the waters. So we're kind of leaving that crowdfunding thing off to the side and
Okay.
uncommitted because the angel investors and venture capitalists that we've been talking to recently have expressed a tremendous amount of interest. So
Good.
we'll see.
Yeah.
I think there's options, but it's 3 years in the military, 33 years in fire and EMS. I'm learning a lot, and
Sure.
I'm enjoying it along the way. But we've found a lot of unexpected challenges, and so but we're rising and overcoming and adapting to all of them. So
That's it. I mean, your experience in the military and in the fire service gave you the three most important qualities that you need to survive as an entrepreneur. And they all start with perseverance,
yeah, yeah,
right? Perseverance, perseverance.
yeah,
Yeah, you just stay at it. You have to believe in what you're doing, what you do, and you have to be enthusiastic about it to the point where your enthusiasm spills over to other people.
well, and I do believe in it, and I think that's
Yeah, and
part of
obviously,
the part of the part of our success has been. I think with a lot of entrepreneurs, they say 90% of startups don't succeed. And I think it's because it's so difficult and challenging that after you try doing this over and over and over again, you keep getting the same result. I could see where we could have stopped this any number of times.
sure.
However, I keep coming back to there's a lot of people out there that are counting on us to get this right. They don't know it
That's right.
yet.
Yep.
There are millions of firefighters that are out there that are unaware that this technology is coming, and when it is, they'll be grateful for it. So we keep pushing forward to honor them and their commitment to public safety.
Yeah, they are your why.
Yeah. Yes, they are. So,
Yeah.
and having that 24-year-old story, that
My
kid,
goodness.
having that really just kind of goes to show that, yeah, we're really onto something rather novel and exciting.
Absolutely. And and it's great to have a story like that. But your future stories have to lie in line, with your business model.
Right. Exactly.
So that's a whole other can of worms.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes.
the thing is, when you're doing something like you are, that's really so, I don't want to say pro bono in the sense that it's free, but pro bono in the sense that it benefits the public and it benefits the firefighters. Um, there's not always, an alignment between something that's good for lots of people and something that's good as an investment.
Yeah.
So you'll have to figure out how you paint that
Right.
going forward. But one would hope that it's certainly in that B2G model, that government agencies would pay for the data that you're generating.
Exactly. I think one of the things that we're waiting to see how it develops is the predictive modeling program that we were working with. The feds had asked them, what does success look like? And they said, if you get red line safety technology on all the firefighters, because what we need in order for this predictive modeling program to work is initial attack data. The first units that show up have to have this, and it sets everything in motion. So then they said, okay, when we're done testing and we've confirmed that this works, that their thought was they were going to approach the U.S. Fire Administration to get FEMA to provide grant funding so that they could pay to get this technology in the hands of firefighters, because all fire departments, they don't budget for these sort of things.
No,
They're all on a razor thin budget, and every year I go back to Washington to speak to Congress and the Senate about rural fire and EMS issues, while representing the National Association of EMTs. And the goal is to encourage them to increase funding to fire departments, because the industry in and of itself, there's not as many people, there's not as many resources available to the fire service that there once was. And so there's a lot of challenges, and a lot of it has to do with funding. So, if you consider some guy named Maslow who built a pyramid, public safety is really at the bottom of that pyramid.
Oh, yeah.
And as a society, there should be nothing more important than making sure that public safety is maximizing whatever resources they have available. So
and right, and they should be given more resources. And I think you're on the right side of the current. The current is, I don't think, going to change, but the current is that we live in America. America is a responsive culture, not a proactive culture. That there's no money for prevention, but there's unlimited money for response.
right,
So if you're building a technology that goes into response, at least you're the weather currents favor you.
right. And in the meantime, we're building databases that would help with the prevention and be out in front of things and be able to provide some predictive modeling opportunities.
Right. And there's a lot of different predictive models out there. One of the things that I loved that you said was about your interoperability. And I'm not sure what form that comes in, but fire science as a whole suffers greatly because of the siloing of knowledge.
Yes.
Right. The amazing work that they're doing at the university in Christchurch, Australia, is not shared with what they're doing at UCSD San Diego.
Right.
Like all this great research going on, nobody talking to anybody. And even if they decide to talk to each other, oh, well, we did ours on COBOL and you did yours in Fortran and mine's Mac and yours Windows. And like the data is not even compatible.
Well, and I think that shareability, and I can understand, as an entrepreneur, I can understand how somebody who owns a business would say, I don't want to share because I gotta protect my space. But the impression that I seem to get, or my my the direction in which I want to see us going is, I think we're stronger if we share. I think we're stronger if
Yeah.
we're working together. I
Yep.
think at a table full of entrepreneurs who technically we're kind of competing against each other, but we share information to make ourselves better because it's that rising tide. And
Yeah.
it lifts all boats. And I think that's how we view this interoperability, is that, yeah, we're not going to own the whole thing, but we'll be a part of it in some way. And if there's anything we can do to be a part of this greatness that's coming through in the world of technology for the fire service, then I think all of us will all be fine. We'll be
Yeah.
good if we're all,
Oh
because
no, absolutely. You
so
know, and you're in the right space too. Like, uh, if you're trying to fight a problem that nobody was really talking about, good luck raising money. But right now, there's no media source that's not talking about wildfire.
right.
There's no city where wildfire's not on the news, daily, weekly. I mean, this is something really on the forefront of people's minds right now. And we know that the tech we have isn't cutting it.
Right.
So therefore, we know new stuff's going to have to come on board.
Well,
So
and when you think about it from a community standpoint, I mean, the community up here, basically all of California, homeowners insurance is just an absolute
oh my goodness.
tragedy, and
Yeah.
so everybody's affected by it, wildfire and the threat of, and the impact that it can have on those trying to buy a home, sell a home, insure a home, all those things, and that we believe that there's an opportunity to kind of draw them in. In fact, part of what we're working on with the federal government is on our dashboard, because we have a dashboard, obviously, is creating community-based mapping opportunities that the general public can access. For example,
Yeah.
on the dashboard, a public access to an evacuation map in a specific area that's built in real time, where
Yep.
evacuation centers are, the routes, don't go that way, go that way, because you have
Right.
resources down here.
Right.
And it could be accessed by someone's phone or computer, iPad, whatever. And so even though we're developing this technology primarily for the fire service, firefighters, fire managers, and such, the data that we're collecting, the resources that we can provide, actually helps protect communities by providing better information for them.
100%, Scott. I
Yeah,
mean, could we fight cancer or coronavirus if we only educated doctors about it?
right, right.
Right? Or can we have a much bigger impact if the public knows, eat this, don't eat that,
Yeah,
don't smoke this, right? I mean, right? And with regard to evacuation maps, it's a whole different thing in wildfire, right? When the problem is the tidal wave and the hurricane coming, okay, we all know where the ocean is, and we all know where inland is,
right,
right? It's pretty simple. You can actually put up signs that say, in case of hurricane, go this way, right?
right.
In wildfire, you can't do that because you don't know which way it's coming from, and which possible evacuation route might take you right into the fire. So
Exactly.
that's a dynamic situation that's changing. Um, if you and which way to get away from the dogs, right? Um, but if you haven't reached out to them, I'd strongly suggest pursuing a collaboration with Watch Duty. Um,
I've
Watch
actually
Duty,
I've
yeah,
done that. Actually,
you
great
have
idea.
great,
I reached
great.
out to them and I talked to the guy, can't remember his name, CEO, and I
Hmm.
said, we're collecting data, right? Because we're going to be collecting all
Yeah,
this data. Is there anything that we can provide to you to help you enhance your Watch Duty app for the
yeah,
general public? Because we use it all the time. We think it's a great app, and
yeah.
so we've been in contact, but it was very early on.
Okay.
So we've kind of done, I think it's a fantastic idea and I really like it. I'm glad you mentioned that, because I've been meaning to reach out to him again and update him. And I'll do that. But yes,
Okay.
that Watch Duty app
Yeah,
is very popular up here.
yeah, and especially if you're looking at evacuation route, informational dissemination.
Yeah.
I think that's something Nick over there would be really interested in discussing with you,
Right. Okay. Nick.
and I'll make an introduction for you on that.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So your needs are hopefully some institutional investment,
Yes.
um, and then in order to keep them for a second round, some paying customers,
Yes.
some market traction,
Right.
right? And it's really interesting because I think 10 years ago the idea of two people talking about fire technology, ha, of investment and entrepreneurs having any aspect of that conversation wouldn't have happened, right?
Right.
It was just a B to G situation, and here's where we just need some more hoses and we need some more PFAS and whatever it is we're buying,
Right.
right? But it wasn't a space that really had revealed itself as an entrepreneurial need,
Right.
and I think that's so beautifully American.
It is.
Right, that we see a problem and we say there's got to be a better way.
Well, that's a great comment because when you think about it, if we were in any number of other countries, you couldn't have a fire captain just come up with this idea and start, building things with other input from other people and create this. So the world of entrepreneurialism is really a huge driving force in this culture, and it's very well protected and encouraged that you couldn't really see in hardly any other place without something institutionally happening to stifle that creation, that creativity.
Yeah, right. And as you know from your pitching, slide one, what's the problem?
Right.
Slide two, what's your
Right.
solution?
Exactly.
Right. And
Yeah.
so people were drawn towards pairing solutions and problems that
Well, and
I
even
do
the
think
U.S.
uniquely American.
even the U.S. PTO office
Yeah,
for patents and trademarks have made it easier for people to have an idea and submit something to get your foot in the door. And it doesn't
yep,
have to be anything fancy. And then you've got a year
yep,
to actually come up with the full patent. So
right.
it really has helped
Yeah, you
other
get your
people.
provisional patent, which you can do with a box of crayons and a napkin.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
So there's a lot of goodness in how people with ideas can move forward. There's a lot of organizations out there that can help. And I found our local November is National Entrepreneur Week, like
okay.
early November. And I about a year and a half ago found this local network, and I found that there are organizations in a lot of communities that help entrepreneurs. For example,
Oh,
1 Million Cups is something that's is an organization. They meet once a week around the country in certain areas, where you have two entrepreneurs pitch an idea to a group of people, and you talk about it over coffee, and it's done either in person or online. So anybody listening, if they've ever had a thought or an idea, just look up 1 Million Cups and see if there's a organization in your neighborhood that you can go present your idea and get feedback on.
yeah. Or go to the SBA,
Yeah.
or many cities have an SBDC, Small Business
Yes.
Development Council, and these organizations are priceless.
Right.
And so you are where you are in your company now. So 30 years from now, when you're retired and made your bazillion dollars off of this, you'll be one of those guys volunteering their time at an SBDC meeting to help the next generation of entrepreneurs come up.
Oh, I can't wait. I I
Yeah,
I feel like I said, around these tables with other entrepreneurs, I want to help all of them. I can't, not yet,
yeah, you will.
but there's an inspiration that people will get when you talk to somebody who's in that stage, and the excitement that they have and the enthusiasm that they exhibit, because they feel like there's nothing they can't do. And I find that very encouraging to see that in all these
Well,
wonderful entrepreneurs I've had a chance to meet.
that's how we got to the moon, right?
That's
We brought a bunch of people together who didn't know that it was impossible,
right. Right.
right? That's really great, Scott.
Yeah.
I'm just super impressed with what you're working on, and the heart that you bring to it, and the reason you're doing it, and wish you all the best in the entrepreneurial journey side of it, because eventually you got to turn this into something that makes money,
Yes.
because money drives the project forward.
Right.
And right, there's an expression that says, no margin, no mission.
Right.
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 So, so you're figuring that out. But anything I can do, to help you on that, or introductions, or point you towards grant money to tide you over until you get institutional funding or
Yeah,
whatever.
I would say yes, please to all of that. Uh, I would any feedback, any leads you can help us with. I mean, we're on the mission that we're on is a wonderful mission meant to do a lot of good for a lot of people. And I'm looking forward to it. One thing that we have a couple letters of intent from a local community college system because they want to start getting this technology in their firefighter academies, which is the
Great.
most formative time of any
Oh,
firefighter.
cool. Yeah.
Because when we were doing beta testing, what we found was our biggest challenge was we would forget to turn it on. And since
Oh,
it's not
wow.
part of your normal routine,
Yeah.
firefighters love routines. They've got this, when the alarm comes in and you get your gear on in a certain way and you get seated
Right.
and you're doing your thing, the last thing you're thinking of is, oh yeah, now I have something else. So we're really looking forward to getting into these fire academies because we think that's a really good starting point while we're also trying to get into established organizations.
You could take out, you could remove the on-off switch, and when the machine comes out of its charger, it's on.
That's
You put it
true.
back in the charger, it uploads,
Yeah. And we
right?
have actually,
Motion activated or whatever.
well, this unit here, one of the things, a lot of the technology that we've put into our wearables is based on the line of duty death investigations. So
Okay.
when we studied these, for example, we added an accelerometer
Yep.
because of an incident. We added a gyroscope because of an incident. So we've been kind of instituting a lot of these moments, and with the gyroscope, maybe the accelerometer, I'd have to ask one of our engineers. We've been able to manage the programming based on the data rates that it sends forward, based on if the unit's not moving, then
Right.
it shuts it down, and then once it starts to move, then it starts, the programming comes alive. So excellent idea. I love it. Whether it's that or whether it's the moment you pull it out of the charger, I think again we're back to the only thing that's limiting us is our imagination, and I think that's a really really good.
And you can tie the GPS and the accelerometer together, right? If it's in its charging cradle at the station house, then you pull it out, turns on.
Yeah,
If it's deployed elsewhere because GPS says and it stops moving, maybe you have a firefighter down,
right,
and then right another alert is necessary, just the way they have those for people who do structural firefighting.
right, exactly.
Right?
And that's
If
why
you
I
don't
like,
move, if your MSA is not moving,
right.
it's going to be chirping.
That's right.
Yeah. So much interesting stuff to do with this.
Yeah,
Well,
there
you
is.
look like you did a tremendous amount of progress, for pre-funded.
Yes.
So
Well, and again, we welcome all input from all people. If anybody out there's listening that thinks, hey, I've got this idea how we could help, our website, there's a contact us page. We listen to all input and people that have these great ideas, and I think it really helps us to be better.
yeah, well, that's what we're all hoping for.
Yeah.
I think we need to build a climate for more fire tech investment too.
Oh, I totally agree. I
Yeah. A couple of companies are really focusing on that. Convective Capital, sponsoring PanoAI, but I'd love to see fire funds
right.
like where they'll invest. They'll seek investment money and then they'll distribute it to various technologies and hope that some of them pan out.
Yeah. Well, and when you think about it, the data that we're collecting, or data in general, allows incident managers to make data-driven strategic deployment of resource decisions, right? So
Provided their blood pressure's not too high.
providing their blood pressure is not too high.
Right. So there's another metric, right?
That's right. And so by providing that opportunity, whatever money gets invested in a local community gets paid back, tenfold.
Absolutely.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
How are the people? Oh, I guess the camera doesn't come to me unless I'm talking.
Oh.
So yeah, I said fingers crossed.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
Scott, it was an absolute pleasure meeting you, and thanks so much for joining me on the show today.
Thank you, Steve. I really appreciate it. It's been an honor to speak to you about what we're doing.
Well, onward and upward. We'll keep up with this, and I definitely want to follow up with you offline.
Good.
It's Scott Holman, the founder and CEO from Redline Safety, developing some really interesting wearable technology, turning people into weather stations, sharing, really point of use weather data about fires, as well as the biometrics of the people who are out there combating them and protecting structures and people. So awesome work on that. Scott Holman. You're listening to The Fire Break. I'm Steve Wolf. We're sponsored by Team Wildfire, and we'll see you at the next one. Be well.
Thank you.